From the old world of Warhammer, everything died, apart from one microcosm of life, which had the look of an orange spore that pulsated and whined, and from a distant galaxy you could hear the signal of a siren. And as time went on, it grew into a huge, colossal squig whose name was Andy. And he started a show with his brave and bold companion, Remington, who rode the back of the squig through the mortal realms into the Age of Sigmar. It's the Andy and Remington Steel Show on a Wednesday night. It's the Andy and Remington Steel Show for your home delight. Now we're talking about Age of Sigmar and everything else that is cool. We're talking about a Warhammer fantasy. It's easy to learn the rules with Stu, with Stu, with Stu, with Stu.
Is that the end of the song there, Mr. Remington? You went off script a little bit. Welcome, folks. Episode 101. A new saga begins. Soul Wars. It's the Andy and Rem show. And we have a couple of wise Jedi here. Of course, me, Andy. We have Mr. Stu, who is with us as a special guest. Hello there.
Hello, fellas.
And also, as usual, we have our rather... He's kind of a Slaneshi Jar Jar Binks, Mr. Remington Steele. Hello.
I won't even qualify that with a statement there.
Okay, I didn't think you would. So, hello to our wonderful audience as well. Let's see who we've got in here already before we sink our teeth into the multitude of topics that the world of Age of Sigmar has vomited up in our laps, as it were. Let's see who we've got in here. We have the likes of Demon_Lizard_From_Out_Space, Graham Rigg, Lawrence Jameson, Meister_R, Mickey Genver, Remington Steele is in there, Russell Higgins, Sean Blake, Stu is also in there, despite being on the show, BZ Lebowski as well, and Andrew Wade. So new people popping up in there all the time. So, folks, it's been quite an active few weeks in the Age of Sigmar community, hasn't it? After not the most exciting times, we weren't particularly inspired for a few months, but Soul Wars has now reached out into the void and grabbed the community firmly by the unmentionables, and it's pulling us into this black hole, as it were. It's latched onto us with its tractor beam, and it's pulling us into the Death Star of Age of Sigmar.
And I think
How do we feel?
You'll find I was right all along by not reading the rules in the past and not buying General's Handbook 2017, because it's all been convoluted and put into one glorious compendium, right? Into the new Age of Sigmar General's Handbook. In fact, there's so many new things happening. We'll go through it all, but it should all be coming together into one magnificent new game that answers all of our queries and problems and questions over the last 2 years.
Anyone that had any issues at all with how Age of Sigmar was going, any of the rules that you didn't like, surely they've all been addressed here. Or have they? But before we go into that, last time out, we talked about what Mr. Remington and I had been up to over the last few months. What about Mr. Stu? What have you been doing in the world of Age of Sigmar recently?
Actually, pretty similar to you guys as well. I took a bit of a break from it as well. Didn't play any games, didn't paint anything for a good 6 months, so maybe a little longer.
Well, why would you need to, Stu? You're a champion. You'd never. This is Stu. If you didn't know Stu, he's never been defeated with his Chaos Army.
Hold that thought. Well, actually, no. I'll give you that. Right. With the Corn Army, yeah, you're right. Still not lost with them. But the Iron Jaws is a different story. But since everything's sort of, lots of this new stuff is coming out, and I've got a bit more. Of course, with the Andy and Rem show coming back better than ever, that's giving me something to look forward to, and
Well,
got me back into it again.
Let's hold the talk of better than ever until we get to this one, shall we? I can tell everyone that I am doing something Age of Sigmar related on my painting table here. If we look, this is the progress I've made on my Griff Hounds. Look at that. Bum, bum, bum. It's not going to focus in time. Oh, there we go. You can just about see where I'm up to. Lots of dry brushing going on and some whiteness around the head. And that's the extent of it right now.
Definitely quick while you're ahead there, Andy.
So, shall we just dive head first into this, off Jabba the Hutt's barge, straight into the pit? And I think we can stop with the Star Wars nonsense now, can't we?
Yeah, we can start with the banter against other shows. It seems like we're one of the first shows to come out with this new stuff. So we're riding a wave right here, because there's ever so many Age of Sigmar shows, but if you didn't know, this is the true Primus.
Well, if it weren't for us, then there would be no Warhammer TV content the way they're producing it now. And you would think, well, now that Games Workshop are doing it themselves, surely the likes of us, we don't need to be making content on the same topics. However, of course, it takes beings of great charisma and enthusiasm for the hobby to put a different spin on it, to maybe give you some thoughts that the official Games Workshop line wouldn't tolerate. So I think that's what we're going to do.
Yeah, if you're looking for real people with real fantasy like nuances, you come to the right place. If you're looking for numeracy nerds, and then you could probably come to the wrong place. But we're in it for fun. That's what it's all about.
There we go. So Soul Wars was officially announced. They have a snazzy little video on it there as well. And they've even shown us what is in the box. And they've pretty much spilled all the beans at once here. There isn't a single bean left. So let's start off with... There are a few things we'd already seen. We'd already seen some previews of sprues. Let's go straight into these juicy miniatures, shall we? And they've even got them labelled so you can see what they all are. So that's nice, isn't it? Let's have a look at this brand new big guy here for the Stormcast Eternals. Number 1, the Lord Arcanum on Griff Charger, a master of both command and the arcane art, whose powers can return fallen Stormcast Eternals to battle. So, Mr. Remington, it must be said that you've had trouble felling Stormcast Eternals in the first place, and now they can return in the midst of battle. The resurrection process has just been sped up by this guy. How do you feel about that?
Do they come back weaker?
I doubt it.
That would be good. They come back and it's just like random what they do because they've lost their brains. They'll become like the stupidity rule in the old fantasy battle with trolls. That'd be good. I tell you what, Andy, when I first saw that picture, if you just maybe bring it up again, it's missing 3 words, 3 key words: devoted of Sigmar. Now, if those were part of the devoted of Sigmar faction, that would be awesome, because you could have them with the 3 peoples. And after all, they look like acolytes of Sigmar, right? They've got the kind of, they've got the white drapes. They look like golden nuns. And, you know, that's a shame. Missed opportunity there.
Well, it has to be said that people did comment that there perhaps wasn't enough to the Stormcast Eternals. They were just these big blobs of armor. There wasn't enough going on for them. But now, of course, we've had numerous uncovered faces. And there are a couple in this starter set as well. There's one there and one there that I can see immediately. And cloth. So it's not just these tin men going into battle. Tin and cloth. And I'm led to believe that there are more female bodies represented in this group as well. I'm not sure whether from this particular angle you can see how many there are, but I'm sure some of these definitely are. Some of them look a bit more slender than others, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, what, are you up for this one, Andy? Are you going to get it?
I think this selection of models is looking quite tasty here. When I looked at the last box, the Blight War, wasn't it? Where they put some new Stormcast models in there. There weren't enough of them that I could sink my teeth into, but I think I like all of these, really.
The way to hook Andy in is to just pop a machine gun in with the box, and then
well, yes,
he'll definitely buy it.
This has got, like, the ability to mow down hordes of Remington-inspired troops from halfway across the table, then it's exactly what I want. That's what I've been asking for.
Yeah, it looks pretty cool. I mean, I obviously am more akin to the other side of this box, but yeah, I like the look of the sort of wizardy Sigmar S at the front.
You mean number 2, which is the Knight Incanter, a flexible battle mage who has the power to nullify enemy spells with contemptuous ease.
Mm-hmm.
That's my favourite one of the Stormcast crew.
Yeah, don't she look like she's got like a dark elf head? A little bit.
Perhaps. But general thoughts on the appearance of these new Stormcast then, the more clothed variety. Do we think it's an improvement?
Yeah, very nice. If you compare the models in this box to the original starter box, like, well, the two characters that were in the original starter box were nice, but like the kind of line troops, you know, the Liberators, compare them to anything in this starter box, and this is way, way better. Much more detail, much more going on. Yeah, much better.
Definitely. We're going to see a more variety of colour schemes as well now, because there's more elements. It's not just armour and shoulder pads as really the two colours you can choose. You can now pick the different cloth levels as well. You've got 2 kinds of cloth, I think, going on, the way they've done it. They've got 2 different colours on theirs. So much more exciting all round, I would say. I want to hear more about this, though. Number 6, let's see. Celestar Ballista. A Stormcast Eternal's war machine that strikes foes with a deluge of armour-shredding lightning bolts. That's what I'm talking about.
Yes, it doesn't. You have to read the small print there that's been faded out, and that is if you roll a 6, it blows up.
I would doubt that Sigmar would allow such a thing to take to the battlefield.
Wouldn't it be nice, though, right?
Maybe. Okay, that's enough of the Stormcast Eternals for now. Back to this page. So before we go on and look at the undead, let's talk a little bit about the fluff that's going on here. So it seems to be that Sigmar was all happy and jolly, knowing that whenever his warriors were killed, he could then kind of resurrect their souls into a fresh suit of armor, and zap, down they go. And it was kind of an unlimited supply. But then old Nagash and his legions have come along, and they've gained the ability to trap souls now, it seems, so that the Stormcast Eternal perhaps won't be able to get away quite so easily and be resurrected.
Okay.
Has anyone else been following the fluff here and wants to chime in?
You first, Stu.
No, I've not actually been following too much of it. I'm not really a Stormcast guy, but I'm not really an undead guy either. So,
well, I was sure that Mr. Remington would be our resident fluff hound, as it were.
Well, basically, the premise of Age of Sigmar 2nd edition, if I might be as bold to say, is that the malign portents have come, and that all the magic in the world has stirred the attention of Nagash, who's outraged that Sigmar has denied him souls. Because, as you may well know, whenever a Stormcast Eternal dies, he doesn't really die. His soul goes back to Sigmar and he becomes reforged. And obviously, the witch elves under Marathai have been doing something a little bit similar, stealing souls, that is. And Gash has found out, and he's got very, very upset. And so this is where he reaps his revenge, or revenge, if you're Spanish.
And the Deepkin as well have a fascination with souls, don't they? They collect people's souls because their souls have been tainted, so they have to feast on the souls of others. So it's all tying together nicely in a neat little soul-flavoured package, isn't it?
Exactly. There's an old phrase. It goes, once, fool me once, then you're a fool. Fool me twice, then I'm a fool. Fool me thrice. I'll leave that one to you.
And your Remington steel. Okay, time to look at some death. So they're all very, very death-looking. This is the most death-like death group of death you've ever seen. Look at all this cloakage going on. How do we feel about this? Do you think the units look sufficiently different from each other?
Well, there's not. You can definitely tell they're part of the same army, but they're definitely. I read that they were all based on the old Cairnwraith miniature. You can certainly tell that. But yeah, I think it's they're all different enough to distinguish the different units, and they're just new out, so. Well, they're not even out actually. So
I think maybe the way you paint them as well, because if you look at the way these are done, the unit at the top here, their kind of ethereal danglage is painted in the same scheme as the main body of these guys.
Yeah.
So I think if you did that, maybe a slightly different colour that it fades to.
Yeah, I would be tempted to paint the kind of ethereal parts of the different units, different colours, just to help sort of distinguish them out.
Hashtag ethereal danglage.
It looks like a great army to paint if you're not that experienced, and if you are experienced, you could do some magnificent things with them. So, I mean, the thing is, what if you had, spent quite a bit of money on buying a Banshee and a Wraith and all the old hero miniatures, which now just look like petty troopers with all these new things.
That's the way things are going, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Everything's getting bigger and shinier and more spectacular. So shall we look at the description for a couple of these? Let's start with number 4, the guy swinging the padlock around. Let's see what it says about him. Spirit Torment. Nagash's most sinister weapon yet. This spectre has the power to trap even Stormcast Eternals in its enchanted shackles. Well, there you go. Even a Stormcast Eternal is not safe when the Spirit Torment is around. Swing a padlock, hit him over the head with it, and trap his soul within, and only the Spirit Torment carries the key. So they're kind of like Ghostbusters, aren't they? It's like if the ghosts in Ghostbusters got access to the Ghostbusters weaponry and started collecting the souls of the living in them.
Yeah, I think it's quite a sneaky tactic by Nagash there. Why take the souls out when you can trap them in? Simply put a lock on their armor and they can't get out.
That's deep.
What I love about these guys is that they're all based on poses in which the once humanoid figure was doing what they were doing. So one of them was in gallows, one of them was about to be executed, one of them's in the stocks. And so I don't know. You think they're like peasant ghosts, aren't they? Really, serfs that have arisen.
Well, the only time a gang of peasants is scary is when they attack you from beyond the grave. I think we can agree with that.
Would you be doing an orange colour scheme with these ones, Andy?
I don't know if orange ghosts are the way to go, unfortunately. Possibly, but I can't see myself getting an army like this because I think it's going to be a bit too horde-like for my liking. Looks like there's going to be quite a lot of models in this army. And as you know, with Age of Sigmar, I'm not a fan of high model count armies pushing all those individual models around the table.
Well, yeah, I can see what you're saying. Looking at these models, you'd think they should be immune to all kinds of shooting or all non-magical shooting because it would just simply pass through them, wouldn't it?
Well, that'd keep all Stormcast Eternal shooting in then if it's all magical Sigmar's lightning bolts. Nothing to worry about there. If you just want to make all the old world weaponry obsolete, even more. So is this inspiring either of you to get a nice Nighthaunt kind of death army?
No.
No.
Not for me, I think. I'm more interested when the soul blight vampires roll around. If they get some nice new models, then that might tempt me in. But this kind of undead, not really. No. So they're great. They're great miniatures, though. They are great miniatures.
See, Stu, I don't think these soul blight vampires will ever materialise because they don't have the IP on vampires. Everything they're doing now is just like its own thing, right?
Well, they could spell vampire differently.
Yeah, well, they have. I can't remember the name of the short story. But it was in a little book. It was given away free in White Dwarf a couple of months ago, and there was a vampire short story in it. It was based on it was Neferata that was the main character, and they did it was a vampire coven she was sort of going to see in this kind of like ballroom type setting, and they did use the word vampire quite a lot. So I don't know if they're just kind of ignoring the whole IP thing for that, or they're just going to go with soul blight, and that's the new word for vampire now.
I mean, the heroes look so damn cool, don't they?
Yeah.
They're really, really nice. I mean, would I buy this box? I might split it with Andy.
It's a possibility. Let's see what else you get in here. So, some books, core rules, book, and this one here, which is called. Does it even tell us what that one's called?
Well, you don't get a spell book, Andy. You get basically a beginner's book. You get like a book that is all about the sort of battle, which is contained in the box between the Stormcast and the Nighthaunts. And you flick too quickly past the other pictures. I didn't see it.
This one here.
Yeah, core rules start here, and then the actual battle in which the scene is cast. So it's not everything. It's certainly not the General's Handbook, which we'll come to later.
And look at this. We've got some nice dice in a different colour that we haven't had in the box sets before, I think.
Back to the measuring.
Interesting.
Back to the measuring sticks.
Nice new measuring ruler.
You need one of those, Andy. I mean, like that's if he gets to 12, you actually laugh. If you haven't watched the show before, you'll never see Andy laugh. I mean, he'll only smile if his counter goes up to about 10. But usually between 1 and 6, it's sort of like a dry ha-ha.
I reserve my laughter for the Remington rules of 1.
You've got one of them silent laughs, haven't you? Yeah, what is that, by the way? What is that counter?
What, this here?
Yeah,
this is the new measuring stick.
Oh, all right. I thought it was like a meter, like when you go to the fun fair and you hit one of those things and it shoots up.
Oh, you like to test your strength with a hammer?
Yeah, I think that's $1 million idea.
Oh dear, just fit one of those in a Games Workshop store.
They should do one at Warhammer World.
I've got delicate miniatures, people carrying their armies around on trays between tables, and then you've got Remington in the background swinging a giant hammer. Well, it's not going to cause any disasters, is it?
The hammer of Sigmar, you pick up the actual Warhammer and you have to smack something. It's like, bringing a physicality to Warhammer that's needed.
They could get a couple of platforms up in the car park and do that game from Gladiators where they would stand atop and just battle each other and try and knock the other one to the ground.
Yep.
Right. It's going to be War Scrolls. You get War Scroll cards in there as well.
Now, does this make you happy, Andy? Because they're changing the design.
Yes. I mean, where's the entire bit of empty space that there?
I mean, this is the annoying thing, right, Andy? Because I've bought the Savage Orruk battle cards, and then I bought the Witch Elf battle cards, and are they like obsolete now because everything's getting rewritten?
Well, some War Scrolls do become obsolete because they get updated, so you just have to keep an eye on them, but not all of them. And the one good thing about having all that ridiculous space at the bottom is that you can just get out a little pen and write down any changes on there.
Right.
So, yeah, they're not totally obsolete. And then look at this. 320 pages.
Yeah, this is great, man.
Nice.
How much of that is going to be fluff and how much is going to be rules then?
Well, I read earlier today that the rules are now up to 18 pages.
Whoa.
And the first, I don't know how big the section is, but yeah, a really big chunk of the first part of the book is fluff.
It's really making the original Age of Sigmar game look like child's play now, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, they were testing the waters, and they've definitely jumped in with both feet into the deep end now, haven't they?
Yeah. It's going to get real complicated.
Well, it's funny you should say that, because there are a few other things that would suggest added complication as we work our way down. But, of course, if you want to look at all this stuff in detail, then head on over to the Warhammer community where you can read all this. We're just going through it quickly for entertainment purposes. But there's info on the various factions,
I mean, this also, like, the factions that it's going to list in here, it's kind of like putting a full stop for a long time. I doubt there's going to be any new armies coming out for a while, right? They're not going to release a new battle tome with a brand new faction in the next 6 months, surely, after just putting this out.
Well, the thing with the likes of the General's Handbook is that you don't necessarily need a new battle tome for your faction constantly, because the points will be adjusted and you'll get new abilities and items within the General's Handbook, you would think.
Mm.
So I wouldn't worry too much about that. Now, this has got Remington written all over it. Malign Sorcery, which is a little box on its own with a book and all these pieces. You don't have to buy them individually. They all just come in a box.
I love it. I love it. So
do you think that's a good move? You have to get all of them together. You can't just get the spiky purple sun.
No, I love it. Just get them all together.
Yeah, you might as well. I mean, hardly anyone just has one army, so why not?
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I think I was wrong then when I said about 5 minutes ago that in that Soul Wars book you don't get the sort of big compendium. Looks like you do, don't you?
You don't think you get that as part of the box, the giant new book?
Oh, you don't?
I think you do.
Do you?
Yeah, I think it is in the box. Let's
see here. Let's make sure we're getting this right. Before we give you all this information, top it all off, you get the complete core book. Oh yeah, you do. It's right in there in the box. So you do get the gigantic book as well. So there you go.
How much do you think the box is going to be?
It's going to be... It's got to be somewhere around the £85 level.
Yeah, £100, I'm saying.
I don't think it'll be that high.
Oh, it's a lot, isn't it?
Do you know how much the 40k starter box was? Is that 95? No, less.
Oh, that's the good thing, because this is exactly the kind of same thing, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty much.
It's around there somewhere. So if you're splitting it with someone, it's not too bad, unless you run into the old issue of who gets the rule book.
Well, that would be you, Andy.
You're the only one that's going to read it.
I think that goes without saying.
I'll read the fluff. I'll look at the nice pictures and the fluff.
You can have the book that tells you all the beautiful backstory.
And then you can tell me what it means.
Yes.
Or Rem, you could keep the core rules book, and you might have a wee glance at that.
Yeah,
I don't know that those 18 pages. That might be a bit too much. I
get a bit bored after a couple of sentences. It's like, just come on, can we just get on with it?
Well, I don't know if you can see how many tabs I've got open, but there are about 10 that are purely about the rules that we'll get to in a minute.
Oh God. Oh.
So they're not as long as this page though. So let's have a look at some of these. Let's see what it says about the Purple Sun. An angry, hungry ball of death magic with the power to slay units with a touch.
This is awesome.
Look at all these. There are 13 spells in here. So these are all the spells that are represented by a miniature, effectively, on the table now.
Now, didn't it used to be called the Purple Sun of Xerus?
Yeah, it was.
What was Xerus? With an X?
Well, there's a paint named after that as well, isn't there?
Yeah.
So presumably that's some kind of... Is it a dark elf god, maybe?
I've got it here, actually.
Obsolete?
Yeah, Xerus Purple. Maybe it's a 40k thing. But these look great. And, of course, the Penedral Pendulum, number 4.
Let's see what it says about that.
Penedral Pendulum. Can't even say it.
The Ether Void Pendulum.
Yeah, that's why
a massive swinging blade that carves its way across the battlefield.
Love it. And look at those gnashing jaws. That's so
gnashing jaws, indeed, number 2. Ravnak or Ravenak's Gnashing Jaws, a spell from Grrr that chews through foes with terrifying effectiveness.
That one is
awesome. A spell from Grrr. You can't really argue with it, can you?
It just looks great on the battlefield as well, doesn't it? Just,
Yeah.
This is awesome because you could have, you may not have any wizards in your army, but you may just do a little house rule, where you're on the battlefield. There's this random spell flying around that could kill anyone.
I think I'll probably paint mine green, so it looks a bit more orky.
Yeah.
It's something that you never really thought about before. When you're representing your army on the table with miniatures, you wouldn't just put the way, well, we wouldn't anyway, the games we play, you wouldn't put little tokens down, these little faceless, just single colour blobs, and say, okay, there's my wizard. Yet we've been quite happy to use our imagination for spell effects for all these years, and no one's thought of actually representing them on the table with anything. So
I mean,
it's outside the box thinking.
It's a giant leap, considering in the original Age of Sigmar, a wizard got one spell, and then two, like, you know, they got Arcane Bolt and Mystic Shield, and then one unique spell, which is kind of like really piddly compared to what you've got now. You've got multiple laws for each realm, lots of various faction magic laws. It's going to be awesome, man.
Yeah, we've heard, if you've been following along with the Warhammer TV content, they were interviewing various members on the design team and so on, and they were saying that this is just the first batch as well of these spell representations. So it's going to be very interesting to see how many there are in total, because of course not every spell requires one of these. If it's just giving someone an armor buff, you presumably don't need a suit of armor to sit next to them all the time. These are just things that are going to be roaming around on the battlefield that need this kind of representation.
I mean, I'm not sure about the number 5. Maybe it's just the picture there. I can't quite see what that is. It looks like an old granny's teeth. They're sort of half falling out.
It looks like the least appealing sandwich in the shop.
Oh yeah, there's a tidal wave of souls or something that.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that one.
Suffocating grave tide, a roiling wave of souls that crushes all who fall beneath it. So it's like the audience at one of your concerts, Mr. Remington.
Yeah, rushing towards the stage at the magnificent sound of my guitar.
Yes.
Yeah, these are race. The only thing is, though, you're going to like get all these, paint them up, all excited, and you won't even get the spell off because your wizard's going to get shot.
We'll see about that. When we get to the rules in a second, you'll see that might not happen quite as much.
I mean, number 9 is awesome, isn't it? That's the burning head, right?
Number 9 is the burning head. Yes, a massive flaming skull that makes everyone around it fight harder if it doesn't incinerate them first. So yeah, I think if there was a giant flaming skull next to me, it might spark me into action a little bit.
What's your top 3, Andy? Top 3.
Top 3. I'm not sure about the way they're painted, but I quite like these here. It looks like kind of floating magic mirrors, don't they?
Yes, you would. The spell starts from one mirror and goes into the next mirror, kind of like realm gates.
Yeah, I quite like that. I'm not sure about the colour of the actual mirror surface there, but I do like those. I like the swords as well.
Yeah, swords are
I think
cool.
they're nice. And I think these chains are quite good.
Okay, what about you, Stu?
I really like my number 1 is the gnashing jaws one, the big orange thing. It's really cool looking.
Yeah.
But I do also like the to the right of the pendulum
Mm-hmm.
thing, the kind of big swinging pendulum. Although I did read somewhere that it kind of looks like the sweeping broomstick thing from Fantasia, and I can't get that out of my head now.
Yeah.
No, it's still cool. But they're all. Well, I think most of them are pretty nice. It'd be nice to actually get them out of the box and have a look at the real life models rather than.
Yeah. There's 2 for me that are missing there. That maybe they'll come in the future, because I can just see more and more spells coming into being, right? But where's the Foot of Gork?
Oh, they missed out.
Right? That would have been a wicked one.
How does that spell currently work? Is it like an instant effect that then disappears?
I think you roll it and it does a D6 or D3 damage, and then if you roll another dice, you get a number. Then it goes again. It's nowhere near as powerful as it was in the old game.
I believe you wouldn't see a miniature for that unless it changes and becomes somehow persistent on the table, because I think all of these are designed to actually stick around rather than just be instant effects that you put down and then immediately take off again.
Yeah, these are all. I mean, I could be wrong, but these are all sort of generic ones that any wizard from any faction can use.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess Foot of Gork is kind of Orc or like greenskin specific.
By the way, we've had a juicy info nugget on the book in the chat from Alexander, who says, they said that 200 of the 320 pages from the core rulebook are fluff.
Wow. 120
pages are rules. 18 pages are core rules, and the rest would be like battle plans and new magic items and so on.
I mean, what about the Gaze of Mork? You could have these sort of two reddish goblin-y eyeballs just shooting around the table like a pinball. That could be cool.
And you have to actually flick the eyeballs across the table as well, and whatever they take out, so be it.
You can bat it around, like bat it around with your swords and stuff.
I wonder if these sell really well, that eventually we will get faction-specific spell miniatures like that.
Yeah.
That would be cool.
Talking of selling, Stu, what's the price point you reckon on this baby?
Oh, because that's a tricky one, because it's not just the miniatures you get, isn't it? There's the book, and
it's going to be a couple of sprues in there,
and some cards as well. Presumably one for each spell, you would think.
I'll say 25, maybe.
I'm going higher. I'm going 55.
I think it'll be between those two. I don't think it'll be that high. Right. Let's look at the General's Handbook then. So, the General's Handbook 2018.
What's on the front there, Andy? It's not a Stormcast.
It kind of is. It's one of the grift charges, I think, with a hammer.
Oh, well, we're making
progress. Although, is it, though? Because it seems to have wings as well.
Yeah.
Interesting. There have been images of a Stormcast hero atop some kind of flying beast that isn't a Stardrake, though.
Oh, yeah. Saw that from the Warhammer Fest pictures. They had it there.
Well, it's the one thing they haven't got now, isn't it? Flying monstrous infantry.
Well, you think that, but I'm sure they could come up with multiple other things that they don't have yet, that they soon will.
Give them a couple of months.
Yeah, they've got a while to think up some more stuff after this release. So, of course, you've got usual battle plans in there. What else have we got here?
Oh, this is the list. Look at the list.
Let's look at these factions here. A new set of rules for summoning for every army that used it before, as well as allegiance abilities for every faction that was featured last year. So, summoning, I was watching one of the Warhammer TV videos. There's quite a few changes to the way summoning works, so everyone has access to it, and it's now free, apparently, because everyone can do it now. So it's not just a case of wizards necessarily conjuring up new troops. There are other ways to represent it. So, for example, if you're having a certain amount of success with killing things with Khorne, then the Lord Khorne would then bless you with more demons if you're doing a lot of killing in his name and claiming a lot of skulls, for instance. So there are ways to get more troops on the table for everybody, apparently.
So this list of factions are ones that didn't get allegiance abilities before, that now will have.
Allegiance abilities for every faction that was featured last year.
Yes, but they obviously didn't have allegiance abilities before.
So,
which is good, because I can't see Moon Clan Grots there. I can't see Beast Corps Raiders there. So they've already got allegiance abilities, I guess.
So they can't see any of your armies in there. Although you've got rid of the Beastmen now, haven't you?
Got rid of the Beastmen, man. And if you look behind me, there's a box there that's being sold at the minute. That's all my undead stuff. I know.
Bum, bum, bum.
I know. I've got too many figures.
Right, new paints. So we saw these already, but this is just confirming that these are the two new ones. Spray white, slap on a coat of these, and you're done. We're serious. Here is an example of how they look. Just using these two paints on top of a white, this is what you end up with.
Wow, that's amazing.
Those look like they look like the paints for me, to be honest.
Yeah, quick and easy.
And even if you want to go a step further, obviously, you can paint the actual cloak part of it in a different colour.
Yeah.
And you can then pick out all the weapons and so on if you're that way inclined. But there's no reason you couldn't just leave a lot of things like that if they're 100% ghostly. Who's going to argue with that?
Yeah. The one on the left looks fantastic.
Yeah, me too. I think so.
Right. Juicy. Accessories. What's this? A new combat gauge? Mr. Rem, have you still got the Age of Sigmar combat gauge hanging around your neck?
I've never had one.
Come on now.
Uh,
We all know that you head out to the club on a Saturday night with your combat gauge hanging around your neck to signify that you're an Age of Sigmar enthusiast.
no. What is it? Is it 3 inches wide? Big? 3 inches long, isn't it?
It appears that way, yes.
Yeah.
3, 2, 1.5.
Yeah, well, that's cool, because wasn't that like £15 or something on its own?
Something like that, yeah.
Something like that. That's good. They're throwing that in.
And I always thought that to have it hanging around your neck, that it would have to be an incredibly long string holding it there. When you're getting it down onto the table, you could end up with really awkwardly. I don't know if you've seen the Reeves and Mortimer, the club sketches, where there's a club owner with a key hanging around his neck on a really tiny chain. So it's really awkward when he's trying to open doors. I'm sure someone in the chat will have seen that, but that's what it reminds me of whenever I see anyone with a combat gauge trying to use it on the table while it's still around the neck. And now look at this. Objective markers.
Those are awesome.
Boom. We've got a head with an axe in it.
You get this with the book?
No.
These are separate.
Oh.
We've got a little tomb there. We've got some treasure. We've got a box of wizardly artifacts and tomes. A collection of arms. And there's that. We've seen that before, haven't we? The stone that was being pulled away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Trying to be taken away by all those screaming skulls embedded within it.
I like that tomb.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, I like that. Like a Bretonian lord line there. Nice.
Very nice indeed. Now, getting down here, we've got some dice. Right, what are these dice for? Well, these are corresponding to, see, track in-game effects. There you go.
Oh.
So there are some for the terrain, which will be these ones here. And it has a little number on as well, in case you can't remember just based on the picture. But hopefully that'll make things a bit easier to remember.
Yeah.
But of course, some of us have tokens that do this kind of thing already.
I think there's one of the scenery rules that's changing. There's one that makes you befuddled, so you can't move. Do you remember that one? If you're so close to a bit of scenery.
Let's see. Is there anything like that here now?
There used to be. Maybe they've got rid of that because it was really annoying.
I can't actually see that anymore.
Yeah, that's good.
It looks like they've got rid of that.
Yeah. But basically, if you started the game with a really important unit that was near a bit of scenery and you rolled a dice and you got the wrong number, you can't move for a whole turn.
That was always amazing, that when you had all your units positioned around that one piece of terrain and they all rolled ones.
Yeah.
After the cry of Remington went up, obviously. There's these wound dice as well, which I'm not sure about. I'd rather have the little turny tokens that you can spin round rather than a dice that's going to get knocked over onto a different side and you'll forget where it was.
Stu, do you go with how many wounds are remaining or how many wounds the beast has taken?
I go with the remaining.
Yeah, I like that better.
Yeah, so do I. As long as it's made clear,
Yeah.
and preferably both players are doing it the same way, then it doesn't really matter as long as you know beforehand. Let's see here, and then there's some more new models for you Stormcast enthusiasts coming up. So, what do you think of these?
Wow. That looks like it's going to be a Shadespire band, no?
I think that's what everyone thought from the sneak peeks from Warhammer Fest. Showed off these models with their kind of, I think they were on scenic bases, or what they look like scenic bases, and the Nighthaunt ones look kind of same, and people kind of generally assumed that they would be Shadespire warbands, but Guess not.
I guess they're putting fancy bases into the regular troops now.
Yeah.
And then we've got these that have a Griffhound with them as well. He's looking very proud, isn't he?
I mean, they look awesome. Like that, the guy with the beard looks well cool.
Yeah.
With his helmet in his hand there.
Yeah, I mean, they just look great without the helmets, don't they? Yeah, so good.
If only they'd thought of it sooner, putting helmetless among them, then maybe people wouldn't have been initially put off. And I think some of these are new. Now, this effect here, where they've got the ghost kind of passing through a gravestone or some such, I've tried to emulate that in the past with the ghosts that used to swirl around the Mortis engine. I used those and tried to make something a bit like this, but it kind of failed miserably and it didn't look very good. But the fact that it's built into a model already, you don't have to do this crazy stuff on the bases yourself. It's just there.
Yeah. Now, what are they skeletons of?
They look like storm vermin, don't they?
Yeah, they do. They look like rats. They've got the kind of storm vermin sheep weaponry as well, haven't they?
Yeah, but they've got humpbacks.
Yeah.
That's weird.
I like
Maybe that's just magical energy.
I like the little undead bird in the bottom of the base.
Let's have a look.
Yeah, that is quite amazing there. It just looks like a regular bird, but with a skull on it. So maybe it is actually just a bird that's just like picked up this skull of his big brother. And he's just pretending to be undead to fit in.
Maybe they're undead. It's an undead race that hasn't been discovered yet.
What do you think about these? I don't think we've seen these before.
They're amazing.
Yeah, they're cool.
They look like the closest thing we're going to get to the new Banshees, don't they?
Wow. They're really graceful.
They have clothes, but they don't have bodies in the clothes. That may be a first.
I'm guessing they're designed to match the... well, I don't think a full picture has been shown off yet, just a silhouette. But the new... Is it the Mortarch of Grief?
Mm-hmm.
There's like a kind of shrouded lady.
Love it.
It looks... The silhouette looks amazing anyway.
But
the outfits, they remind me of the ladies that adorned the...
Yeah.
Not the Mortis engine, the other version of it.
Yeah, not the vampire throne thing.
The Coven throne?
Yeah, the Coven throne, that's it. The outfits they've got remind me of those.
Yeah, all this is pointing at one direction, and that is, who is the Mortarch of Grief? It's not Andy.
Certainly not.
I think it's Isabella von Carstein.
Oh, yeah. It'd be
Dun.
interesting to see if these two new Mortarchs that are coming out are characters from the world that was, or all new personalities.
If anyone wants to know all about the origin story of Isabella von Carstein, then they should check out the PC game Dark Omen from 1998 and struggle playing it because it's so difficult, and it's so difficult to actually get it running in the first place on modern systems. But do it anyway because it's a great game. Right, Mr. Remington, I know you've had to suffer through all these wonderful pictures and backstory, but we're about to get to your favourite part of the day, which is contained within these about 10 different tabs full of rules. But we're only going to go through them briefly, so don't get too concerned.
Okay, I have Total War prepped and ready on my computer here. Can you see that? Maybe not.
Yeah.
So, you carry on, boys.
Now, it's not going to be too boring for you, Mr. Remington, because we're just going to look at small aspects of the rules and then what's changed and whether we think that's a good move or not. I think you can manage that, can't you? So, artifacts of the realms. As you know, there aren't a huge amount of magic items out there, but now there are 84.
Jesus Christ.
So, the game that was simplified and streamlined is now back up there again in terms of customization options. 84 items. I think they've given us some examples here. Let's find one that I want to pronounce. The Ether Quartz Brooch. Each time you spend a command point, roll a dice. On a 5+, you receive 1 command point. So an item that might save you some command points there, which we'll get to further down. Command points, of course, being what you use up to use your command abilities. So lots more items. If you want more info on these, then go over to the Warhammer community. Mr. Remington is glued to this right now, as you can see. Right, let's look at another one here. Let's look at the Wraith Bow, shall we? In your shooting phase, pick an enemy unit within 18 inches of the bearer and roll 6 dice. For each 6+, that enemy unit suffers a mortal wound. Okay. Sounds not that exciting.
This is not that great.
Maybe it's really cheap, though.
True.
Okay, so there are going to be more artifacts. Next, battling in the realms. So let's see what this is all about. Choosing a realm. Well, there were rules previously for fighting in each individual realm. I'm not sure if all of them had their own set of rules, but that whole thing looks like it's expanded on big time. And there are certain abilities that come into effect within certain realms. So look at this. Heish, strike quickly. You can use this command ability at the start of the combat phase. If you do so, pick a friendly unit within 3 inches of a hero, or 12 inches of your general, and within 3 inches of the enemy. That unit fights immediately instead of fighting later in the combat phase. Okay, there you go. That's just a little taster. So, Mr. Stu, what do you think of these realm-specific rules here?
I like it. Yeah, I like that they are doing more specific things for each realm. I'm assuming that you... I'm guessing there's some kind of mechanic for both players, choosing which realm they want to fight in. And
yeah, I believe some of these are
rolling a dice for it. But
yeah, some of these are specific command abilities, these two, that are active in that realm. So presumably you have to pick your command abilities after you find out which realm you're fighting in.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, no, these are cool.
I mean, the Heish is really good. If you get some mangler squids in combat, or a big colossal squig, and you put on that command ability for Heish, yeah, that could wreak devastation outside of the normal combat phase, right? Now, with that command ability, do they get to hit back?
No.
Well, that's flipping amazing.
So ways that would be incredibly useful if you've got a unit that's tied up in combat, but you really want it to shoot, and you're with the new rules, which we're going to get to, you may not have as much freedom in your shooting as you did before. You can now activate a unit that's right there and kill off that unit that was holding them up, and now they'll be free to act for the rest of the turn. So lots of tasty possibilities with that one. And of course, all the realms are going to have their own.
That's cool.
We don't need to go through all of them in excruciating detail, but you get the idea. Command abilities and command points. So this is one of the big changes. Previously, only your general, he was the only one whose command ability you could use. Now you can use all the command abilities available to you, but it costs you points to use them. And you start off the game with a certain number of points based on if you take certain War Scroll battalions, open up more points. And I think there are ways for you to gain points throughout the game as well. And do you cash them all in at the start? Do you really need to use that command ability right now to make one of your units immune to battle shock, or are you going to save that for when you actually get into the fight? So I think that opens up some interesting tactical nuance there. Because it seems like a lot of these rules are designed to take away autopilot, if you ask me. Because a lot of the games I've played of Age of Sigmar, you didn't really have a whole lot of choices when it came to using a lot of your abilities. It was pretty obvious what you should be doing in every turn with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think they're giving you a lot more options now, and it's not going to be so clear cut. What do you think?
I like that you can, you can tailor the use of your command abilities a bit more for different situations, rather than just kind of waiting for your one to become relevant, kind of thing.
Yeah, if you've got a hero that you really like, but it's never your general, and he's got a nice command ability, you're actually able to use it now.
Yeah.
I think, am I right in saying that all this makes you less passive if it's not your turn? You know, I mean, you could go through a turn if it's not your go, someone else is going. Well, all you're doing is sort of rolling a dice sometimes, right? You're not making any decisions. But I think all these extra rules and stuff, they're making it a lot more engaging, a lot more to think about and consider. And in fact, there's almost infinite more things you can do, so your opponent can't predict what you can do now so much.
Yeah, if you take more options, and the timing of them is going to be less predictable now as well.
Yeah.
Because you won't want to use your command ability all the time. You'll want to save up the points sometimes to make like a furious strike of 3 or 4 command abilities all at once from different heroes.
That'll be what you'll be doing on the last turn, isn't it? Just to get all the objectives.
Well, in our games, the last turn is usually 2 or 3, isn't it?
Yeah, often the last turn, literally the games are so close, it comes down to a dice roll at the end.
Usually you shout Remington and then it lands on a 1. There are now 3 generic command abilities as well. So the Inspiring Presence is basically the same. At the double, so you can now run very easily with that unit now. They can just move 6 inches. It's treated as being a 6, so you don't even have to roll. So after you make a run roll, there you go. So you can decide to use it then if you make a really bad run roll. And forward to victory. So this is after you make a charge roll. If you do this, then you can re-roll the charge. So if you're saving up you're keeping some points and reserving, you really roll badly and get a terrible charge roll on something that should have been easy, you can now re-roll it.
Is that the double for that late game objective snatch with the run?
If you're keeping those points back and not using them all up early on, because you never know, so you may end games with a few command points left over because you're saving them for situations like this that just don't necessarily come up all the time, these generic abilities. Let's have a look. Inspiring Presence will now only last for a single battle shock phase. So there you go, but can be used in your opponent's battle shock phase too. Yeah, so basically you choose when to like cash in your Inspiring Presence now. It's not like before where you would activate it in your turn, and then that unit would just be immune to battle shock for your turn, the opponent's turn, and then if they go first in the next turn, another turn as well. Like one use of the command ability, you got 3 full turns of 0 battle shock. You have to pick and choose a bit now.
Yeah, of course. If you're hoping to save all these command abilities for one brutal phase at the end, you could be disappointed if your general gets slain. Right?
You certainly could.
Or is it any character that can use them? Or are they associated?
Well, these ones are only for generals, I think.
Right.
These generic ones. I believe I read that somewhere. Yeah, every single general can use. But some heroes do have their own specific abilities that will fit into this as well. So that sounds very interesting to me. I like the sound of that change. Should get some more variety in the game. Endless spells. So spells that stay on the table for a long time. Represented by these beautiful new miniatures, of course. So spells floating around. Previously, in old editions of Warhammer, they would have been represented by maybe a little piece of cardboard with swirling mist illustrated on it. But now we've got these actual miniatures. It's not an unfamiliar concept to us veterans of the game, spells that actually stay in play. But people that maybe jumped in with Age of Sigmar, it may be a new thing to them. So how do you feel about spells that are persistently just floating around, either at random or directed by the caster, compared to the instant effect spells?
I like it. I like that that the spells hang around and are just as destructive, but also I like that both players get to control it rather than just the one player, constantly moving this destructive thing through their opponent's army. Yeah, I like that both players get to move it. Which is,
I mean, it depends just how devastating they are. I mean, because the Purple Sun spell was a real game changer in the game of old. You know, is it going to be that powerful? If it's an endless spell, I'm sure they're not going to make them like it does 2d6 damage. It's probably just going to be half that.
I guess though, you know, unless you dispel it, it is going to cause you some problems. But yeah, you're right. I don't think it will be like delete a unit a turn kind of strength spell.
Yeah.
Well, I hope not.
So this paragraph here, Mr. Remington, I think you'll find very interesting. So to determine the movement of them at the start of the round, starting with the player that has the second turn that round, then you'll be able to pick a spell to move. And then the other player will pick a spell to move, and then so on. Like you do in close combat, but you'll pick a spell and just move that around on the table. So if you've got two spells very close to your lines, both devastating, which one are you going to move out the way? Are you even going to move it out of the way, or are you going to send it towards your opponent?
Yeah, you could just end up sending it away, and then the other player sort of sends it towards you and you send it away. So it might just not do anything.
It might turn into a game of tennis in the middle of the table.
Yeah. I mean, does it get absorbed by scenery? What happens then? Does it go through scenery?
Or maybe you'll want it to move towards you so you can dispel it.
Yeah, there is also that. Or maybe it's a spell that has benefits to you, so you'll want to move it towards you. Not all of them will be bad, I'm sure.
Yeah, no, I'm sure there's at least one that heals units.
Yeah.
Comes back.
Yeah. I mean, does this mean that Mystic Shield and Arcane Bolt are gone?
No, but they are modified.
Right.
I believe we've seen that the Mystic Shield now lets you re-roll failed saves of 1 instead of +1 to your save. And Arcane Bolt, I believe it does less mortal wounds now unless you roll high on the casting roll. So they're not as potent as they were, but you've got so many more options now, you don't need them. And it seems silly that they were arguably the best spells available to all the armies. You'd always see people using Arcane Bolt and Mystic Shield constantly, wouldn't you? Even when they had other faction-specific options.
Yeah.
You'd still see them all over the place. So it seemed a bit silly to me that they were so commonly used. So toning them down a bit can't be bad. Oh, let's have a look at this, shall we? The Purple Sun, Endless Spell, War Scroll. And I think it's true that no spell inspires greater fear than this. So, summon the Purple Sun. Has a casting value of 8. If successfully cast, set up the Purple Sun wholly within 6 inches of the caster. It's a predatory endless spell. It can move up to 9 inches and can fly. Abilities. When this model is set up, the player who sets it up can immediately make a move with it. There you go, so you can immediately move it 9 inches after setting it up within 6 of your wizard. After it's moved, each unit that has any models it passed across, and each other unit that is within 1 inch of it at the end of its move, is subject to its energies. So, roll a number of dice equal to the number of models in that unit. For each 6 + 1 model in that unit is slain.
Oh, I was wrong. If it's got more than 6 wounds, then it gets 2d6 wounds, right?
2d6 mortal wounds instead.
I mean, that's amazing.
Ouch.
I mean, if you've got a load of brutes, if you've got a load of like ogres or, things with more than 3 wounds in them, that's devastating.
If you've got something like a Star Drake there,
yeah,
and this rolls over them, that's not going to be fun times.
Yeah. It's devastating. It's great if you've got a faction that's kind of like a bit weak, it doesn't have any big gribblies. This is the perfect spell for you, isn't it?
You definitely want to be dispelling this, I think.
If you're a faction with lots of 1 wound sort of foot soldiers, battle line, and you can get this off, this could really even things out big time.
And if you're in the realm of death, then it can move 12 inches instead of 9.
Wow.
So this is going to be a bit of a beast.
I mean, it's a large model as well, right? So it's got quite a big area that it covers.
A pretty decent area.
Mm.
Okay, so that's just a little taster of what we can expect in the magic endless spells. And I think that's very interesting. Now, this is one that Mr. Remington has alluded to a couple of times so far. So look out, sir. It's back. It's not quite the same as it was. So here is the entire rule laid out for you. So look out, sir. You must subtract 1 from hit rolls made for missile weapons if the target of the attack is an enemy hero that is within 3 inches of an enemy unit that has 3 or more models. So look out, sir rule does not apply if the target hero is a monster. So if you have your little 5-wound infantry hero standing among your rabble, then he's now going to be harder to hit. I think that's something that we all would like to see.
Yeah, that's good.
Put a smile on Mr. Remington's face by the looks of it.
Like it.
So your little wizard there in amongst your grots isn't going to be quite so easily sniped off anymore.
Yeah, I mean, do you think they'll start incorporating characters into units again in time? Or do you think, is it going to stay the same? Like characters, just they're like single entities wandering around on their own?
I think they'll keep them separate because a lot of them have area of effect abilities.
Yeah.
And like bubbles, they're buffs. So I think they want you to keep them between the units rather than in a single unit.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, this is great. And of course, the new shooting rules going to make it a lot harder to just snipe off characters.
Yes, that's coming up as well. Yep. But it's not a huge debuff to shooting at heroes, -1. But it's just a little nudge in the direction of making characters more survivable. Mm-hmm. And maybe if they find that that's not enough and that it's still happening too much for people's liking, maybe they'll subtract 2 in the future. Maybe it'll be a fluid thing like that. We shall see. Casting and unbinding. So the big deal here that I've already heard about without having to read, because I, of course, follow all the latest goings-on, is that you now no longer need to see what you're unbinding. How do you feel about that, Mr. M?
You no longer... Yeah, that's fine. Is the range further as well?
It's 30 inches instead of 18 now.
Right.
Which apparently makes the Cygor amazing, but I'm sure you've got rid of yours now.
Yeah, I never had one, to be honest. So, yeah, I mean, with the unbinding thing was a bit rubbish before anyway, because Wizards hardly had any spells anyway. And they weren't that effective. They weren't game-changing. So now you've got these much stronger and more varied spells. It makes sense that you have some kind of chance to unbind. And I think every faction has some kind of unbinder. Does even the Caradron Overlords have that ability? Can they unbind? Maybe they're the only ones that can't.
I can't think of one off the top of my head that unbinds.
No, because Stormcast obviously can now, big time.
Stormcast have got a new hero or 2 that can, and they did have one before that could as well. So... yeah, if you're going to make spells more powerful, it makes sense that you make them easier to unbind or more options for unbinding. So I think that's a logical change. One thing they've pointed out is that the Curseling Eye of Tzeentch, when he unbinds a spell, he can then cast it for himself, I think.
Right.
So
deflect it, yeah.
Yeah, so if you're trying to... the example it gives here is that if you're trying to cast Mystic Shield on one of your units and he's within 30 inches and unbinds it, he can then just say, right, just zap, deflect it onto one of my units instead.
Yeah, cool.
So that makes anything that can benefit through unbinding, for example, slapping wounds onto someone when it unbinds a spell that they're trying to cast, anything along those lines gets better now with the 30-inch range instead of 18. You don't have to get your wizards in harm's way anymore. Next, measuring and piling in. Well, you measure from the base now.
Wow, interesting.
As if everyone wasn't doing that already. Who was really measuring from the tip of a skeleton's spear?
Well, they kind of had to do that before because people had square bases, didn't they? And now
They're still telling you not to get rid of your square bases, though.
Really?
Yep. Although they do say pretty much that if you're going to a tournament, then maybe the tournament organizer will have some rules about the roundness of the bases.
Yeah, I've literally got hundreds of models on square bases still, and it's like a mammoth task changing them all because I like to make the bases nice. I'm getting through them slowly.
I love to have the time to go and rebase my old 8th edition Warriors of Chaos army, but it's just the idea of the chore of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and some of the armies are perhaps not quite as loved by the game's development team. So are you really that inspired to rebase some of the old world armies when there are all this new shiny stuff that they're putting all their attention on?
Well, luckily, Slaves to Darkness are quite good in Age of Sigmar. So
for now.
For now. But we'll see. They probably won't be by the time I actually get around to rebasing them.
There's been a change to piling in as well. You'll remember previously that there was all kinds of nonsense you could do with piling in, where you wouldn't want to be right up against an enemy model, because if you stayed like a few millimeters away, you could then pile in like round the back of that model as long as you got closer to it. So you could then move 2 millimeters away, and then you could do the same thing again, just like spin round it as long as you get a tiny bit closer each time, which was a nonsense to keep track of for a start. And it didn't really make any logical sense. So one of the changes they've made is that you can now slide around a model that you're touching, basically, as long as you don't move away from it. So if you're trying to lap around a big monster, for example, you don't have to do all that tiny incremental distance shenanigans. You can just touch it and then just slide around and pile in easily. The way that logic suggests you should be able to.
Yeah.
So I think that makes sense. Look here, they've got what bases should I use then? Whichever ones you want. There you go. Put away the clippers, they say. So there you go. Don't cut off those square bases just yet. I still think they should put out a book called something along the lines of Old World Battles with mildly revised 8th edition rules, just to appease people out there that maybe still have their armies and aren't willing to touch anything new.
Well, they did do that, what's it called? Warhammer Legends thing. I think they started with Dark Elves. And you put out new updated War Scrolls for the old Dark Elf miniatures. I think it's kind of along the lines of, I'm not too sure, but I think it's kind of along the lines of being able to use, your old world models with AOS rules, basically.
Yeah, I think they've tried to bring the units more in line with the power level they used to have, haven't they? I think that was the idea behind it. Yeah. Something that was supposed to be terrible and terrifying back in the day that was now awful is now going to be more representative of what it was in the past.
That's cool. Yeah.
So, moving on. Shooting in combat. This is one that's very close to Mr. Remington's heart. When you tie up that cannon in combat and then suddenly it thinks, hold on, just stand back a sec. We're not in the combat phase yet, lads. Let's just get this cannonball in here. Here we go, light the fuse. No, Mr. Ungor, if you could just duck. I want to shoot that guy behind you over there across the battlefield. Yeah, that's nice. Down with the wizard. Now, if you're tied up, you can only shoot at the unit that you're in combat with.
Good.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
But then, it's good. But you do get double the attacks, right? Because you'll get your combat phase attack, and you'll get your shooting attack. So, doesn't it make missile units twice as deadly?
Well, if you don't attack them, then they're attacking you once, and you're attacking them 0 times.
Well, no, you get your combat phase attack, but you don't get a shooting phase attack if you're engaged in combat. That's how it should be, right? But it isn't. It's you get your combat attack as normal, and you get to shoot at the unit you're fighting.
It gives you power, though, to tie units up and decide which unit they will be able to shoot at by throwing something at them that's expendable.
Yeah, it gives you a chance to bog down shooting units with stuff that you don't care as much about.
Yeah, but would you want to put... Yeah, I hear what you're saying, but that would... So you're saying you wouldn't want to put your 10 Chaos Warriors in against my Savage Orc Archers. I've got 10 of those. They've got 2 wounds each. They're not going to be great in combat, but they're going to get to shoot you as well.
I'd probably be more likely to throw something like Blight Kings at you that can soak up a lot of damage.
Right. And like I was saying, Mr. Rim, if he didn't charge you, you'd just be shooting away at him for the rest of the game regardless.
Yes, true.
So you might as well pile in there, unless your unit's so terrible that it's more likely to get killed.
Yeah, something like a chariot or something heavily armoured. If you mow into a unit of archers, I can see how that could be cool.
Yeah, you want to get those archers peeled off in combat to reduce their shooting effectiveness. Get them killed, take a few more off with Battle Shock, maybe.
Yeah.
Next, we're nearing the end of it now. Summoning for free. I think we already talked a bit about this, actually. So we don't need to go into this too much because we've already been over that every army will have access to summoning in some form or other now. Every army. It does have every in all caps there, so there will be no exceptions. Everything can summon in some way, which it's one way to level the playing field, isn't it? Because I thought it was always a bit strange how you paid points for units that you could theoretically summon. Whether or not they make it onto the table, it must have been a nightmare to balance, because the value of a wizard who can summon, if you're not paying points for the units he can summon, his value skyrockets. If you are paying points, then his value goes drastically down. But at the same time, you kind of paid those points for the units already, and then if he gets killed, they're completely wasted. So there's some of your army that are never coming on.
Yeah, kind of a nightmare if you've paid the points and then your wizard dies before he gets to summon anything.
Yeah, I thought that was a strange way of going about it, but the fact that everyone has some access to summoning now, it seems like they're just leveling it a bit. I think that's fair. Because if the one summoning army loses their wizard and the other army has everything on the table, then wow. But now if everyone can summon, then maybe it'll be a bit more balanced in that regard. Turn priority. Okay, it's only a minor change, but this is the change right here. So if you went first in the previous battle round, and it's tied, then you will decide, as the player who went first previously, you will decide who gets the first turn in this round. So it makes 2 turns in a row slightly less likely. Unless your opponent wants to give you 2 turns in a row, if your units are just way out of position and they would need another turn to get to within range to do anything anyway. But the opportunity for 2 turns in a row is slightly reduced, but not gone.
Yeah, that's cool.
Okay.
Stuart, are you a fan of the roll-off for turns? Or do you prefer it sequential?
No, I actually quite like the randomness of the turn sequence thing. No, I don't mind.
I think this is a good change, though.
Yeah,
because
keep you on your toes.
Yeah, it's slightly adjusts it so that it's not quite so likely to come up. The old 2 turns in a row.
I like it because you can really, if you've got a little battle plan, like you want to get to that objective, and before you get there, you want to try and finish off a unit. You can do that in 2 rounds, where you probably couldn't do that in 1 round, knowing that you've got your opposing player's going to go after you. And now it's got that element of chance that you can really see through a battle plan.
Yeah, basically you can never bank on getting 2 turns in a row anymore.
Yeah.
Because it's slightly less than 50-50 now in your favour. We've got a comment here from Natha99. The new shooting rules definitely was how it should have worked before. Yeah, I think almost immediately when Age of Sigmar came out, people were complaining that you could shoot out of combat willy-nilly. And it's taken them this long to address it, but they have, finally. And it's gone. So, that is all of the rule stuff. Right, let's stop that screen share for a minute then, because I feel like people haven't looked at my wonderful face for quite a while now, and this backdrop, which now contains this lovely new gigantic orange die up here. Don't know if you can see that. Mr. Rem, this is the die that I'll use for all critical dice rolls from now on, because even if it doesn't roll a successful number, the actual die itself will probably crush numerous units.
That should be included in the everlasting spells, shouldn't it? Just giant dice.
So you got your shiny YouTubers award displayed proudly there.
Oh yes, I've put up the YouTubers awards finally in the backdrop here.
Nice.
The Andy and Rem show right up there from 2015 and 2016 Best Battle Reporter. There we go.
Oh,
nothing for last year, but I think I did slack off a bit on the old content front, so can't expect.
I think everyone knows I was cheated out my 2016 award, and
I think you were only in about 2 of those battle reports.
Actually, not to rub in, but I've actually got one of them as well.
Oh, there you go. What's that one for?
It was a best converted miniature 2016.
Impressive. I think you'll find 2015 was the vintage year. 2016. Do you know what, Stu? I love those posters you got in the background there. You just talk us through them quickly.
Oh yeah, this one is a Lord of the Rings art poster. I think it's from the 80s.
Nice.
Thank you. And the other one is just all the DC comic book characters and a big kind of mashup.
Brilliant. And if you're lucky enough to win tonight's competition, Stu will be sending you these.
I don't think he agreed to that.
I'll, with tracing paper off.
Right. So before we look at the beautiful painted miniatures from the community, there were a few over the last couple of weeks. Overall thoughts? Someone just asked in the chat whether we're going to be buying this second edition box. Mr. Rem, what are your thoughts? Would you think about going in for it and getting the undead side of the deal? Has it grabbed you that much?
Keep in mind, Rem, that getting the Nighthaunt will also give you access to the black coach when it comes out, and that looks amazing.
The black coach looks amazing. Yeah, I know. No, I'm going to hold off. Are they selling the book on its own?
Yeah.
Might get the book on its own, but then why bother when Andy's just explained all the rules in this show tonight? There
is that, but you'll have those 84 new unique artifacts if you were to pick up all the new. Yeah,
but come on, you go through your battle memory a sec. How often has a battle artifact really mattered that you didn't forget that you had during the game?
I think it's safe to say that in the games, in the amount of Age of Sigmar games that you've played, which I think you admitted can be counted on one hand. I don't know whether we ever used artifacts.
That's not been verified. I think it's 3d6 would be a more accurate counting. 3d6 games I've had.
And were artifacts used in any of those?
None that I actually used, probably because I forgot I had them. But yeah, can't remember any.
Well, there you go. A hardcore competitive player would never forget which items they have.
So what about you asked Stu? You remember your artifacts?
No, not all the time now.
There you go.
Yeah, there are a few times in various game systems when I've got to the end of the game and thought, oh yeah, that unit had that item that I decided to throw on there just before the game.
Most of the time I remember, but sometimes you just want to roll the dice.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Stu, what about you? Are you thinking of picking up this new box at all? It doesn't seem to have any armies in that in your wheelhouse, as they say.
No, not quite yet. No, the box set, I don't think so. But the core rule, the main rule book, and the General's Handbook, definitely. And then we'll see what else pops up in the coming month or so. No doubt there'll be other little additional things around the corner. There always is.
Well, I'm definitely tempted, but it'll depend what kind of money I can get for the undead on eBay, and how much I'd end up actually paying for the overall box. Because they're all quite nice, those Stormcast miniatures, but I've got a lot of models to paint around this room already. So by the time I got to them, would it be worth that financial outlay? We shall see with time.
You've got an undead army though as well, haven't you? Wouldn't the Nighthaunt complement it?
Well, they're all on square bases and most of them are Mantic models. So I'm not sure how they'd feel if I turned up for a game against you at Warhammer World with my new Nighthaunt, supported by 300 Mantic zombies. I don't think that'd go down too well. People talking about the Flesh Wand in the chat now, which reminds me, we should do Season 2 of the Forest of Rem, shouldn't we?
That'd be amazing. Stu, you were in on one of those, one or two of them, weren't you?
I was, yeah. I think I was a Zinch bird of some kind in one of them.
I think you were very helpful and helped me on my quest.
Weren't you growing out of Remington's arm, perhaps?
Oh yeah.
Before he became Remington the Ever-Chosen.
Yeah.
And set off on Jeff the Chimera into the realm of the heavens to bring down Sigmar, I think.
That sounds about right, yeah.
Is there anyone who didn't catch the Forest of Rem initially? There is, if you just type in the Forest of Rem into my channel search bar, then you'll find it. It's all compiled into one video for your convenience. It's a couple of hours long of just pure, unadulterated mayhem and entertainment.
And if you also manage to keep a track on the Facebook page, Andy and Rem Show, you will have seen Witch Coven. Phenomenal story outline. One day they could make it into a great film. I mean, but what about this? Why don't we combine the two into one Forest of Rem featuring Witch Coven?
Featuring Andy the Ungor.
Yeah, that could be amazing. That could be a game changer there.
Well, I think Andy the Ungor has perhaps got his own army of chaos. He's risen through the ranks of the beasts, and he's rising up to challenge Remington the Ever-Chosen, perhaps, for the favour of chaos.
Well, if you'd read the final part of Witch Coven, you'll find that he got sacrificed to the Darkling Queen.
However, you know that souls are not easy things to dispose of nowadays. His soul could have found its way into any kind of being by now.
This is true. And if you listen to the start of this show, you'll find that there was an orange spore pulsating with the spirit of Andy. So who knows? We could go anywhere with it, but let's just do it.
Who knows, indeed. Right, final thing for tonight. Shall we look at some beautiful miniatures?
Yes.
Here we go. So, first of all, Remington. What have we got here?
Redoing my bases. So I've pulled out my 1987 War Dancers. The guy on the left, that is my Kurt Russell War Dancer there with a wolf hat on. And that's real blood, by the way, because I cut myself with the scalpel, chopping off the what do you call them? The things that the slotty things, but they're metal. So that was painful. Yeah, they're looking all right, aren't they? Round bases, not so bad. Just need another 30 of them, another 40 of them, I think.
Are those some of the fancy new round bases?
Yeah, they're all right. I mean, you could really spend hours on them, but then you look and realise you've got another 60 to go. You've got to find some kind of uniform way of doing it. The way I paint now is like they look great from a slight distance. That's the way to go. You know, I'm not trying to win a painting competition, so let's get them looking cool and vibrant. That's the thing.
It always seems like you have a knack for painting flesh.
Yeah.
So I think that the skin on these is quite nice.
Yeah, okay. It's really good.
Thank you.
Next up, this is from Andre.
Wow.
Andrei.
Oof.
Not seen that rattlesnake design before. That's great.
It's like a, what you call it? It's a coral snake.
Mm-hmm.
It's the red nail. That's awesome.
Yeah, normally you just see kind of greenery here, don't you? Very interesting snake work there.
Wow, so smooth.
I'd be interested to see a full army of the new snake ladies painted like this. I think that would be very good. This is from Brad, and of course this is one of the Forge World. What do they call the Chaos Dwarves now?
Oh,
They call them the Black Duardin.
something like that.
I don't know what they call them. The Forge-born.
I can't remember actually.
I'm sure it's some. I think they have a specific
The deep
name
fried.
for them.
Deep.
The deep fried. Yeah, let's go with that. Okay, so there are some other pictures in this army as well on the Andy and Rem Show Facebook group. If you're not a member, then you should head over there now and request. I think I changed the privacy settings on the group so you can actually view posts without being a member now, so you can have a browse and decide if you want to join beforehand.
Just in case you're wondering, the chat is going mental with the with chat about Witch Coven.
I think I've seen it mentioned once in there.
Once is enough in my book. Nick Trujano, you're a legend. Forest of Rem 2, Witch Coven. It sounds like a hit. Blockbuster.
What do you think about this from the legendary Mr. Sam Jones?
Wow.
Oof.
Yeah.
Is it enough to put the rest of us painters into retirement?
Yep.
Yeah, it's really good, isn't it?
This is one of the models that I've always been hesitant about because there's so much exposed, untextured flesh, which is the one thing that I feel like I struggle to paint. So I've kind of avoided this line of miniatures for now. But look at that lovely work there.
Is that the actual head? Is that a dark elf head?
No, that's the actual head.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Wow.
Very
Yeah,
tasty indeed. So you can trace the evolution of the Stormcast. First it was armor, then it was fur pelts, and now it's just beautiful robes. So where will it go next?
Just get rid of the armor completely. That's what I say.
Naked, flagellant Stormcast Eternals.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What's the point of them having armor? Because they're going to be reborn anyway.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure it takes a few minutes to kind of reforge them. This is from Kim, and this is a nice purple and gold Stormcast with kind of getting a very hot feeling from this weaponry here.
Yeah, you want to stay away from them blades, wouldn't you?
You can feel the heat emanating, including from the little hammers on the end of these as well.
Oh, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, word of warning: be very careful when you're publishing pictures of your fingers. You know why?
Yes, let's judge them now.
No, because your fingerprints. Someone could take a copy of it and then access your bank accounts online.
I don't think it's quite that simple. But
Well, that's $1 million idea.
if you would like to, if you would like to plant any of these fingerprints, particularly this one, I feel is the most clear. If you would like to take a sample of that from the HD recording of this show, and then maybe plant it at a few crime scenes, I'm sure you would be arrested. So I wouldn't recommend it, regardless of how much money Mr. Remington thinks there is to be made in that particular industry. Okay, folks. I think it's going to be time to wrap this one up.
Okay, and I think it's time for either our guest to sing a song. It's been too long, Stu. It's been brewing a long time. It's time for a song, a tale from the.
I think he can maybe give us a couple of sentences of words of wisdom going forward for Age of Sigmar, and then you can break into song, Mr. Rem, to follow it up.
It is your turn, Andy, to sing, by the way. So we'll leave it there.
It's definitely not my turn to sing.
Bloody hell.
So, Mr. Stu, if you'd like to give us a few words of wisdom for players going forward in the world of Age of Sigmar.
Oh,
Maybe warning them about the pitfalls of this particular game system, or words of encouragement you'd like to give them. And then Mr. Remington will take things away with a beautiful song.
I would say, but remember back in the day of Age of Sigmar being launched and all the naysaying that was going on, and how many people left the game, and GW were the worst thing in the world. Now look at us, a few years later, and we've got the game that everybody wanted, with all the miniatures releases that everybody wanted. So there's a lesson in there. Stick with it.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, man.
Truer words have not been spoken since perhaps the last Andy and Rem show. So, of course, everyone, before Mr. Rem breaks into song, don't forget to check out the links in the description. Check out the Andy and Rem Show Facebook group, of course, all the various social media madness down there. And don't forget, although the chat window is actually permanently accessible now, later, when you're watching the replay of the show, you can now read the chat at the same time, which is nice. But we do also appreciate the old permanent comments as well. And Mr. Rem, if you would like to take things away. Until next time, folks.
All right. Now, guys, help me out with some lyrics, because as you know, I work best when it's on the fly. So anything that you write in the comments will be included in the lyrics of the song.
PG rated.
If you like. Okay. Thanks for coming. And, yeah, here we go. Sigmar, take this armor from me, 'cause I can't use it anymore. There's endless spells flying round. Feels like I'm knocking on Sigmar's door. Yeah. Knock, knock, knocking on Sigmar's door. Knock, knock, knocking on Sigmar's door. Nothing's ever gonna keep you down, 'cause you're the best that's ever been around. What more could Sigmarines need, except flying monstrous infantry, gonna make you bleed, yeah. Knock, knock, knocking on Sigmar's door. Once again, we're gonna be knock, knock, knocking on Sigmar's door. Mama put my orcs into the ground. I can't shoot them anymore. Seems they've nerfed my savage orcs, and they're gonna be knock, knock, knocking on Gur's door.